So it's been a great pleasure for me to visit the new ABC Center here at Lund University, where I had the opportunity to share new work of mine on crafts entrepreneurship. And it focuses on two sites in Johannesburg, South Africa. The first one being Victoria Yards, which is an old laundry facility built in 1912. And that has, over all of these years in South Africa, fallen into disrepair and became the site in which really it wasn't a good neighbor to have. And Nando's was operating just across the street from this now very derelict precinct. And through Nando's work with some of the developers in that area, this became a precinct within which crafts and arts are really flourishing. And so my study was trying to figure out what the material aspects are that really allows this to be part of the city's regeneration. The second site is Conhill. This is the site of an old prison, also more than a century old, the site of a lot of imprisonment of all South Africans during the Anglo-Boer War, and of course under apartheid. Nelson Mandela was incarcerated there, for instance. And here again, Robbie Brosen, the entrepreneur who founded or co-founded Nando's, he was on the board of trustees there and said that again, art and crafts is how we're going to give life to the Constitution, how the Constitution, in his words, can be rebranded and become something for South Africans. So what I study here is really the materiality of both sites, how certain bits of these old buildings are stripped down, other parts are kept, but it shows the history of all of these spaces. And through the arts and crafts, of course, the artists come with their own histories. They take elements from other parts of the world, African beads, for instance, in the case of the jewelry maker at Vic Yards. The African beads are actually Venetian beads that were used in trade, lost its value, became very cheap, so much so that she played with them as a child in Africa. And now they're gaining new value and becoming something quite special. So this jewelry maker, Helen Thomas, has a really, really interesting way of using objects as travelogues and bringing a part of the world back to Africa. And of course, then the objects travel back to other parts of the world. And this materiality is something that I find really interesting. But certain questions remain, of course. Is this just capitalist logics that are put onto these sites? Do the capitalists always get their way in terms of course, the rents that are then asked and extracted from these premises? These would be the critical questions that scholars ask. And how can one really work with that in a way that would make it possible for these sites to get a new life, and also for these sites not just to be islands sort of in pockets of excellence in an otherwise really troubled city? How could the city really benefit from the way in which these materials and the materiality of these practices give new life to Johannesburg